So we're continuing on with the same topic as the last video, but now we're discussing how self-awareness saves lives.
But there have been so many of them, and they all have the same common ingredients. You have a child who is alienated from other kids, usually alienated from parents. You have kids who have talked about suicide or threatened suicide. And you have many people who are aware ahead of time that something isn't right. And yet many people are reluctant to say anything.
So you can see the common theme here is that no one spoke up, no one intervened, nothing was done to prevent this from happening. In Aaron Stark's story, he went to social services, but then his mom came along and then convinced them that he wasn't being abused, and so they didn't take action. And this is the really unfortunate, tragic part. Maybe something could have been done, but it wasn't, because the people who were in positions where they could have done something either were ill-equipped, either intuited something but disregarded that intuition, or possibly didn't even notice that something was wrong. Yeah, in hindsight we can look, oh look, there's all the signs, but in the moment there is this reluctance to acknowledge that something is wrong. So I'm going to discuss that more in the next video, why people don't speak up, why we don't listen to our intuition. I'm going to point out the people who are working in social services didn't have enough awareness to see through the bullshit that his mother was providing. And I'm going to say, that's why self-awareness is so important. If you can listen to your own bullshit, you can see through the bullshit that other people spew. The mind is tricky, the ego is tricky. It will keep you stuck in abusive patterns, stuck in old patterns that keep you trapped. And yes, when I say abusive, that can mean your own mind is abusing you, where you're stuck in a pattern of guilt and shame and can't get out of it. So the next clip is very telling about this lack of self-awareness.
Tonight, the father of the confessed Santa Fe shooter is talking about what his son was doing in the hours leading up to the ambush. Antonios Pagorchis says his son cooked dinner and sat with his family and even said he loved them before he went to school on Friday morning.
The family says they too are shocked by what happened. The father gave an interview in Greek, so you are hearing the voice of an interpreter. Listen.
I feel the pain of the others, but I have the same pain. I have the same exact pain. I'm sorry. My kid, he wasn't the kind that gets into fights and things like that. He was a solid, good boy. He didn't drink. The only thing he did was work out and stuff like that.
So the father said they were completely shocked. Remember how in the previous video they said that there's usually signs? Well, these signs might have been subtle, they might have been obvious, but the father, and maybe not the family, didn't pick up on these signs. And that's the thing about awareness. If you have a high level of self-awareness, it helps you bring awareness to other people, to situations, to be able to look at a situation and understand what's going on right away. So I'm going to give an example of this. If you know Mina Irfan at the Universe Guru, she's told a story about her son who was taking an online university class. There was someone in the class, in the chat, who was saying things that were a bit off, slightly disturbing. I'm not exactly sure what was said, but her son reported it, and it turns out that that student was going to commit suicide, and that was prevented because someone noticed, someone spoke up. Now Mina Irfan is highly conscious, and she's raised her son to be highly conscious, so they both have this high level of awareness. And it's not necessarily that you have to go and seek out all the problems in the world and fix them. No, they were in their daily lives, and they were bringing light to the world in their daily lives. And that's what I mean. Self-awareness saves lives. I just finished a live on intergenerational trauma. It was the second part, and something came up. It was talking about how children are affected by the subconscious trauma and beliefs of their caregivers, and the caregiver can be unconscious of how they are affecting the child, and in very formative stages. We have many people from different cultural and ethnic backgrounds, and that means their trauma and the trauma of their ancestors is all going to be different. You don't know how exactly it's going to show up until it shows up, you dig into it, and you see what's underlying that. And that's what I mean when I say your healing is a superpower, and it impacts many people in ways that you don't even realize.